All right, guys. Thanks for coming back. So we have this free session, so you might have to relog in every 40 minutes or so. But yeah, I'll try to get a. We have a go-to meeting that is actually that can run for 2 hours. Probably next session we might use go-to meeting, but for now let's continue with this. All right. Yeah, so we were looking at programming languages. And by the way, you guys can see my screen and all that, right?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so there are a couple of languages and everything has its pros and cons and all that. But if you see, the majority of the market share is owned by, or Python owns a majority of market share, okay, almost 30%. I think this is a little bit old, 2014. If you see the latest market share, Python has 22% or something. It went down, okay? But still, it's a considerable market share. There is a C and C++. They both go together. They own almost like 18% of the market share and so on. Java is currently 15% something, but you get the picture that Python is a lion's share. That means it has the majority of the market share. And next comes Java, and then C and C++. Most of the times, these two are combined, C and C++. So C++ is more than Java's market share as of now, current, and so on. So these are the main things that we are looking at. Okay? So we're going to look at primarily Python in these sessions. And we're also going to discuss a few other things about other languages, but we'll only cover Python here. Okay. All right. Now, why do people prefer Python? Okay. As you can see, Python has a good market share. And Python was a recent language. It's a new language. It has a lot of drawbacks. It's not good in a lot of scenarios. Performance is very bad with Python, but still people are going to Python because, number one, it's a little easy compared to other languages. So all the newcomers who are coming into the industry, they prefer Python because it's easy to get started. So there is a lot of people that know Python. So, and also Python has very good data analysis frameworks and all that. So that's one of the reasons Python has a bigger market share. But if you look at performance, Python is very bad. For any high performance, like let's say you are New York Stock Exchange and you want to do millions of transactions every second and so on. In those kind of scenarios, Python is very bad. In those kind of scenarios, C++ is the way to go. So everything has its pros and cons. Okay? So if you have like a UI component, some Java might be a good choice. Java might also be good for some service-based processes. But in this class, in this session, we're only going to look at Python. Okay. All right. Now, going back to this picture, now we have a service here. The service can be Java, C++, Python, any C# or any of those languages. Okay. But we're going to look at Python service. Okay. So Python is a language, and that language is what is implemented. This service is implemented in Python. Okay. And the front end is implemented in JavaScript. Let's go with that for now. It's a front end, which is a web front end, and that is implemented in JavaScript, and this is implemented in Python. Okay. Now, in Python, there are different frameworks to make it a service-based approach. Okay. So it's like, yeah, there are so many different frameworks in Python. There is a Django framework. Okay, so this is one of the web framework that makes it much easier to implement a service. Okay, there is another framework called as Flask. Okay, so we're not gonna look at those things because we are, as a tester, we don't care about how the service is implemented. I'm just giving you the depth of how this can be, what are the things that are involved from a developer's point of view. Okay, so you have Flask, you have Django, you have Fast API. So Fast API is another Python framework. Okay. You have AWS API Gateway. So AWS itself is another major component. We're going to discuss about AWS in detail a little later, once you guys have some idea. But yeah, there are different frameworks that help you develop this service that we were looking at. So this service that we see, that can be implemented using Python or other languages. In Python itself, there are like 4 or 5 different frameworks that will help you develop that service. And the data, everything is stored in a database, and we saw the different type of databases. Okay. All right. So with that said, I want to talk about a little bit about Python basics, and then I'm going to come back and we're going to have like a small test, test in the sense, a software component testing. Okay. So we will take some test case and then we'll try to test it out. And I'm going to tell you how the testing works overall and all that. Okay. So yeah, before I proceed, hopefully you guys installed the software links that I sent you. If not, maybe you can install it right now. And if you guys have any questions, maybe you can ask me now. So I'll give you 1 or 2 minutes for installing, bringing this up. I'm going to use Pycharm, but if you have another software, Visual Studio Code or other things, that's fine too. Okay, so you can use any of those. So Pycharm is coming up for me. Okay, so it's here. All right, so this is how it looks like when you try to bring up Pycharm. So bring up the Pycharm, and then we're going to look at few settings, and then we're going to talk about some basics of Python. Okay. All right, let me know. You can put in the chat if your Pycharm is up and running. All right, guys. Once the Pycharm is up, go to File, Settings. Okay. If you go to Settings, you should see under Python Interpreter, Python Project, there should be a Python Interpreter. Okay. You should see this Python Interpreter selected. In my case, I have 3.10, but anything after 3.7 is fine. 3.7, 3.8, 3.9, 3.10, anything is fine. Okay. So you should see this Python interpreter selected. You might see no interpreter. That means you don't have Python installed on your computer. Okay. So let me know if you see this interpreter. Or if you don't see, I can help you with installation and all that. And this is very important because if you don't have proper setup, you won't be able to run your program. And if you're not able to run your program, you won't be able to practice and all that. So I want to take a few minutes and help you set this up so that you can practice on your own free time. You can do Google search and all that. But the environment setup is very important, not just now, but even when you're working, even when you find a job and all that, you may want to spend some time setting up the environment properly, okay? Because your team or someone might say, hey, I want you to do this coding. You can connect with the support person or so on. But if your environment is not set up correctly, you are screwed because the support person may not be much helpful. He doesn't know. I mean, every company has its own environment. So you have to be at least knowing the basics of setting it up. Okay, all right. So if you see this Python interpreter 3.10, that's good. Okay, don't worry about these things. I have few extra things that are installed here. You may not see all of them, but that's fine. Okay, we don't need these things for now. Okay, all right. So once you have the Python interpreter, everything selected, go to File, New. So go to File, New, and I'm gonna select Python file. Okay. So when you say new file, it's gonna give you a bunch of options. You want a Python file, or you want another file type or so on. So choose the Python file. Okay. Yes, give me 1 second. I'm getting a phone call. Hey guys, sorry. All right, so I'm gonna create a file, new file, and I'm gonna select Python. Okay, so I'm gonna go to new, and I'm gonna say Python file. So you can name the file here, any name. So I'm gonna name this as demo_1. Okay, and I'm gonna hit enter. Okay, so that creates a file called demo_1.py. Okay, all right. So now what I have here is a Python file. Okay. So once I'm there, I want you guys to try this print hello world. Okay. So this is a very customary. Every language that you learn, the first thing you want to do is print hello world, and that's what we are doing right now. Okay. So we have Python file, and we have this print statement hello world, and print is a function. So you would put parentheses and you would put double quotes and whatever you want. You can print hello world, or you can put your name or anything you want. Okay. And once you do that, you can go to run and select on run 3 dots. Okay. So I'll let you type this out. All right. So once you have that, go to run and select the run and the 3 dots. Anytime you see those 3 dots, that means you want to get a pop-up and all that. Okay. So if I click on that, I'm going to get this additional option. My file name is demo_1. So I'm going to select that. And when I select that, at the bottom, you're going to see an output window. The output window shows the output that we just ran. Okay, so we said print hello world, and that's what it says here. Okay, so you should see that. If you don't see that, that means there is something wrong with the setup. Either Python is not installed correctly, or your Pycharm or some issue with the environment. Okay. So let me know if you see that.
I see your font is too small.
Oh, the font is too small.
Yeah.
Let me increase the font. The thing is, I'm using a big monitor, and you might be in a laptop, so your font might be too small. Okay, let me try to adjust this. Okay, increase font size in Alt Shift plus. Okay, let's try it. Dot. Okay, all right. Is that okay? Or should I increase more?
Much better now.
Okay, cool. So what I have here is a simple print function. I'm calling that print, and parentheses, and inside the parentheses, I put double quotes. So anytime you put double quotes, that means it's a string. Okay. I'm printing that string, and you would see in the output this thing. Okay. So let me know if you see the output or if you don't see the output, because we want to make sure that your environment, everything is set up correctly.
Still don't see it.
You don't see it? You see an error or something?
I think I haven't set up that right. Can you do the setup again for me?
Sure.
I think I have.
You mean file settings? You mean?
Okay.
Go to file settings, and in the search bar, you can look for Python interpreter. And that will show up this Python interpreter. Click on that. And in there, select the version as 3.10 or whatever the Python version you have.
Okay.
Okay. So, and then
Okay, let me try. Okay, it's good.
you see the output, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Anyone else has any other issues? Oh, Ajay. Ajay, what is the error that you see? Oh, it's asking.
Yeah, I think I didn't select the interpreter. So I think now I can get it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you.
So if it's asking for license, that means you didn't install the free community edition. Okay, so in Pycharm, so if you see, yeah, Pycharm has a paid version, professional, and a community. Okay, professional is a paid one. You get 30 days free trial, but community is a free one. There is no difference, or there are very minor differences between the professional and community. And for our use case, it doesn't really matter. Okay? So we can go with the community version. Okay.
I think I did professional. That's why I see.
Yeah, community should be fine for us for our use case. Okay. And this
Yeah,
is
I just signed up for the free trial, so that should work for now.
I see. Okay. Later on, you can uninstall and maybe go with community, or maybe after 30 days, you can do that. It's up to you.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So if everybody's seeing this output, that's great. All right. So you have that print. Okay. Now let's say I want to print a number. Okay. So I can just put the number here. Okay. So I can just say print 5. Okay. Or if I want some decimal number, 5.5, I can do that too. Okay. Or I want a single character. Okay. You can also print a single character like A, or whatever. Okay, so if I try to run this, so remember the first time I went to run and selected the run option, but later on I can go to this option here. I'm not sure if you can see. Over there, you should see something like the file name, and you should see a small play button, kind of a green icon. So if you click on that green icon, that's going to run the program. Okay, so I'm going to click on that run green icon, and that should show me, or that should run the program. Okay, so the very first time you need to go to run, set up whatever you want to do, and later on you can just press on this green button. Okay, so it makes it easier for you. Okay. All right, for guys who joined later on, so what I have here is a simple Python Pycharm project. You can use Visual Studio Code or any editor that you want. But yeah, I simply have 4 print statements, and I'm printing this hello world and printing a bunch of numbers and so on. And the first time you would go to run, click on run, demo_1, or whatever the file name happens to be, and that should run the program. And you should see the output here. Okay. Okay, all right. All right, so this is a very basic, I mean, like print statement is very basic. So we have the print. Okay. Now, Python is very type independent language, or it's called dynamic typing. Okay. So if you see some languages like C++ or Java, you have to say something like int x equal to 5. Okay. But Python doesn't need to know what is the type of it. You just say x equal to 5, and it will figure out this x is of type integer, because what you're assigning, it will deduce the type from whatever you're assigning. Okay. So you can say amount equal to 50.40. Okay. That means this amount is a decimal number. It can figure out that you are assigning a decimal value, and the amount will be decimal type. Okay. So this is called a variable. Okay. So you have a variable whose value is 50.40. You have a variable x whose value is 5. Okay. You can also have string variables. Okay. So you can have something like Miracle Solutions LLC. Okay. So that's a string variable, and you can see double quotes. That means it's a string. For any strings or characters, you need to put double quotes. And Python is very flexible. I can also do single quotes. Anything is fine. Okay. Single, double quotes, it doesn't matter. Okay. So both of them are same here. Okay. Now let's say that I have a really large string. Okay. Like multiple lines. Okay. So I can do something called as triple quotes. Okay. So I can put 3 quotes, and then I can put multiple lines there. Okay. So it's a big story. Title. Okay. Yes. Whatever. So you have multiple lines, and if you want multiple lines, you put triple quotes. Okay. Triple double quotes or triple single quotes, anything is fine. Okay. So this is same thing. Triple double quotes, triple single quotes, the same thing. Okay. And I can print them if I want to. Okay. So I'm going to say print paragraph, or I can say print amount. Okay. And that will print in the output. Okay. You're going to see all that is going to be printed out. Okay. All right. So just to recap, you don't need to specify the type of the variable. Okay, the type of the variable is deduced automatically, and it's called dynamic typing. Okay? Dynamic typing, or it's also called as duck typing. Okay? All right. That means you don't specify the type of the variable, you just assign whatever you want. And Python is going to figure out what is the type of that X, what is the type of amount, and all that. Okay. And if you want strings, you can put double quotes or single quotes. Both of them are same. Okay. And if you want multiple lines, you would put triple quotes, triple double quotes, or triple single quotes, and all that. Okay. And then you can use those variables in any way you want. Okay, you have paragraph, amount. If you want to print it, that's fine. Okay, you can print it. Okay, all right. Now let's say you have X as 5, amount as 50.50. Okay, I want to add these two things. Okay, so I can say total equal to amount plus X. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm adding these two, and I'm assigning to a variable, new variable called total. Okay. So, and then I can use that if I want to. Okay. So you can see the total is 55.40. Okay, here I have highlighted it. Okay, all right. So you can see that at the bottom, that prints the value of the addition of these two things. Okay. Now let's say that I want to assign the value back. Okay, that means I can even do this amount equal to amount plus X. Okay, that means I'm adding that and I'm assigning back to amount. Okay, and we developers or testers are very lazy. Okay, we don't want to do so much typing. We like shortcuts. Okay, so this can be written as this. Okay, so this is a shortcut. So instead of me typing amount 2 times and saying amount equal to amount plus X, I'm just going to say amount plus equal to X. Okay, that means these two are equivalent. Okay, so anytime you see this code, that means we are adding X to amount and then assigning back to the amount. Okay, and if I print that, so we are adding 2 times. So I'm adding X 1 time and then second time. Okay, so you should see 60.40. Okay, so think of your code as a beautiful masterpiece. Okay, you don't want to write hundreds and hundreds of lines of code. You want to write small code but powerful code. Okay, but yeah, this is a shortcut, amount plus equal to X. Okay, now we saw that we see that plus can add numbers. Okay, in Python you can also use plus to add strings. When I say add strings, it can append 2 strings. Okay, so let's say I have this miracle solutions. I can do plus. Let's see. Okay, that means now if I try to print the name, this will be appended to the end of it. Okay, I'm going to put a space here. Okay. If I print the name, so this is going to print the name of that. Okay, now you're going to see Miracle Solution space LLC. Okay, so the plus operator is for strings, for numbers. It's going to work for both of them. Okay. All right. Any questions so far? All right. Looks like the Zoom meeting is going to end in another 10 minutes. But if it ends, join the same link and we'll continue. Okay. All right. So we see the plus operator work for strings and numbers. Okay. And we also see the shorthand notation. Now let's try to have let's we saw simple variables. Okay, there is something called as a list variable. Okay, so let's say I have list of cities. Okay, Oh, by the way, you can have variables with underscores, with numbers, or any of that. That's okay. Okay. One of the rule is you cannot begin with a number. So I cannot have something like 2 as a beginning. Okay. You need to begin with a character, and then you can have anything after that. You can have underscores, you can have numbers or anything like that. Okay. So I have a list of cities. I want to have a list of few things. Okay. So I'm going to say New York. Okay. San Francisco. Okay. Or I can do Hackensack, which is where we are based. Okay. So you have a list of cities. You're going to see that I have something called as square brackets. Okay. Square bracket means here we are saying it's not a single value, but I have a bunch of values. The bunch of values are all put inside the square brackets. And you can see the comma as a separator here. Comma means this is one string followed by another string, followed by another string, and so on. Okay. So this is called a list data type. List means it's simple collection of bunch of elements. Okay. Python has a very peculiar implementation. Since Python is type independent, I can have strings and numbers or anything in there. So I can have something like New York. I can have 20. Then I can have India, whatever you want. And then I can have something like number. It doesn't matter in Python. Okay. In Python, you can say, I want a string, number, string, whatever you want. Okay. So you can group all of them together. The other languages like Java, C++ does not allow that, because if you have a list, it has to be all strings, all numbers, and all that. You cannot mix and match, but Python will let you do that. Okay. Python has no problem with that. So this is called a list data type, and I can do something like print list of cities. Okay. And when I run the program, you're going to see it prints the square brackets, comma, and all those things. Okay. All right. So that's a list data type. And let's say if I want to access the first element, okay, I can do something like this. I can put a square bracket and put a 0. Okay. So in Python and any language, the indexes start with 0. That means this is a 0th element. This is the first element, and this is the second element, and so on. Okay. 0 means the first element. Okay. So if I run this, I'm going to see single value, which is New York. Okay. All right. And if you want to print the last number, okay, sorry, the last value, there are a couple of ways you can print it. Okay. You can say print list of cities, and you can put -1. -1 is, remember I mentioned that I'm going to remove this. It's confusing here, so I'm going to remove this. All right. So this New York is a 0th index. That means a 0th position. This is number 1, and this is number 2. Okay. So when I say -1, what Python does internally is it goes back. So this is 0. And when I say -1, it goes here. It goes to this last element. Okay. And that's what is printed in the list of cities. Okay. So if I run this, you're going to see it prints Hackensack. Okay. So if you want to access a last element in a list, you would do -1. Okay. All right. I know how to print the first element, the last element, or if I want to print the second element, I would use 1. Okay. 1 means it's the second element. Okay. If I want to print total number of elements, I just want to see how many elements are there. Okay. So I can say print length of cities. Okay. So you can see that len is a function that gives me the length. Length means it gives me the number of elements. Okay. And that tells me there are 3 elements here, okay, in that list. All right. Now the same function length will also work for strings. Okay, so I have this name. Okay, I want to see how many characters are there in that name. Okay, so I'm going to say print length of name. Okay, so you're going to see this character, this string has 21 characters there. Okay, all right, you guys with me so far? Any questions? You can post on the chat or unmute yourself and you can talk. So I want you guys to start typing the coding on your side also, so that you can practice more. I'm also going to copy paste this code, put it in the chat, so that you guys can also practice this. Try it out. So I already pasted in the chat. Okay, all right. So the length function can give me the number of elements in the list, or it can give me the size of the string, or how many characters are there. But if I want to find the length of New York, okay, so I can just put len around that element, and that will tell me how many characters are there in the first element in the list. Okay. Okay, so there are 8 characters in New York. Okay. By the way, guys, any questions so far? Maybe if I'm going too fast, let me know. I'll just slow down.
I think we are good.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so what we saw so far is how to access individual elements, how to print the whole list, how to print how many elements are there in the list, how to print the size of each element and all that. Okay, so that is a list data type. Okay, now there is another data type which is something like called dictionary. Okay, what is dictionary? So let's say if I have something like zip code mapping. Okay, so let's say I have 10021. That is a zip code that is mapped to New York. That's a New York zip code. Okay, I have 07601. That is a zip code that is mapped to Hackensack. Okay, and then let me put in a new line. It's easy. Okay, and let's say that I have 100, or I'm just coming up with a random number. Maybe this is some city in Omaha, Nebraska, or whatever the city happens to be. Okay. So let's say that I have a zip code, and then I have a corresponding city that zip code happens to be. Okay. So if this kind of mapping I want, this is called a dictionary. Dictionary means you have a key and there's a corresponding value. Okay. So this is called a key. And that's a value. Okay. So if I want to find out which city is 10021, okay, I can just do this print zip code mapping, and I'm going to say 10021. Okay. Guess what it prints? It prints New York, because here I'm accessing the value using the key. Okay. Or let me give you another example. Okay. Employee ID mapping. Okay. So let's say employee ID 1001.